Hi, welcome to part 2 of my series of videos regarding Return of the Jedi and the toys that came out around that time. As I said, I was 9 years old when the movie came out in 1983. It was one of my biggest film memories, the strongest actually, and so I have a lot of sentimental value attached to the movie. Maybe some of the older fans were not as happy with the Ewoks. They weren't as well received by older fans at the time. But if you were my age, then they were. I was in the perfect age to really enjoy them, and I thought they were really cool. So let's look at some of my Ewok vintage Kenner collection here. We'll start off with the Ewok Village, which was and really is one of the coolest play sets that Kenner ever came up with. It's just really massive. Lots of playability. It has this boulder on a string here. It has a capture net underneath. You can see back there. It's a working elevator, which of course mine does not have that operating. I do have most of the attachments though, including the campfire and the spit that they would roast their captives over. Yeah, I don't know if we could get away with that in a modern film either. That's where the elevator should attach there. I do have the elevator, it's just in the back there. So it's a really cool playset, and I was lucky enough to find the playset a couple years back for only $10, and then I was very lucky that I had an online friend who helped me get all the railings and all the different pieces for it. It's much better just to buy things complete when you're buying vintage toys, instead of trying to find something that's basically a shell and trying to find the parts separately. It often costs much more to do that. So we had the village, and then we needed some Ewoks to fill in. The first two that were offered ever were Chief Chirpa, who was the leader of the tribe. He didn't have much screen time at all. I think you barely see him a couple times, but he was one of the first introduced. And Logray, the Ewok shaman. Now, they were so secretive about these characters in the film that on the back of the cards for the other figures, they had Logray and Chief Chirpa blacked out so that you couldn't see the surprise new characters. Later in the line, we also added Tebow, who's pretty cool. Comes with this little staff. He's got his headdress, some kind of a boar that he's turned into a hat. He was one of the ones that pushed the spear into Han Solo's face in the Return of the Jedi. Of course, the most popular and the most iconic with the most screen time was Leia's friend, Wicket W. Warwick. Wicket's not that easy to find anymore. He'll go for a little bit of money. So there were our first 4 Ewoks. Now the second 4 get a little more complicated. Poplu, who is the Ewok who steals one of the scout troopers' speeder bikes as a distraction, was released on a Return of the Jedi card, but he's also sometimes considered one of the last 17. And as I talked about in the last video, they are the last 17 figures to be released. And we're going to take a look at them. The other ones I have, last 17 of the Ewoks, and there were 3 of them, was Warrock here. He's complete with his bow and his quiver. He's He's pretty hard to find, especially with all of his accessories. He's fairly expensive. And Lumot. So Lumot here, she is missing the accessory, the bow. So I was able to find this one loose and got a pretty good deal on it actually. It does have her quiver of arrows. So the only one of these that I do not have loose, but I do have a sealed version of, is the Ewok Ramba. And when I talk about the last 17, this is what I mean here. That's the power of the Force. So these came out in 1984, 85. They came with a special collector's coin. And you can see on the back, this bottom row here, starting with the Han Solo and Carbonite. And we go over these last 17 figures, all except, Anakin Skywalker was a mail away, so he's pretty easy to find, and he's very inexpensive. The rest of them, you may need to take out a loan at this point to get. So I do have Ramba in box. Here is a boxed version, mint on card, I should say, of Lumot. So you can see there is the bow that's included, that I don't have in the loose version. So these are really cool to have. And then I do have some of the other ones that I showed earlier. Tebow, there he is, mint on card, never opened after all these years. It's Poplu also, and you can see here's the free Anakin Skywalker action figure, the last 17. Now they are not pictured on the back, but there's Anakin, and you can see Poplu and Lumot, who are arguably part of the last 17, are also pictured on this card back though. So there's a lot of discrepancies that go into that. And here is a mint on card version of Logray, the Ewok Shaman Medicine Man. So that covers all the figures. I always like to include, because the speeder bikes, the scout troopers were such an integral part of the indoor scene, so I do kind of wanted to show this is a speeder bike, a little dusty, you gotta go in there and get that off. So these are fairly common with the Scout Trooper. The hardest thing to find though are these flaps back here. They're always missing. They came off very easily, so this one is 100% complete. I have about 3 of these bikes, and that's the only one that is loose and complete. Now you can see in the back I do have a beat up boxed version I got at my local comic store. But this was my find, and I was really happy with this one. This is a mint inbox. You can see the old Toys R Us sticker on it. Never been opened. Speeder bike. Looks like it's brand new, so he's in there, and well, the bike is in there, and the bike flaps are definitely in there as well. Now the Ewoks became so prolific that there was all kinds of merchandise made. Wicket was featured pretty heavily on everything, including the thermos from the lunch boxes. Of course, they decided to make some plush, and I do have 2 of the big plushes. There's a Wicket himself, and they made a girlfriend for him, Princess Nisa, just to add some females to the role. I don't think she's in the movie, but she figures pretty heavily onto the show, the animated Ewok show, in which, of course, they merchandised, and we have items like this. It's Ewoks Lunchbox. Now the figures themselves from the Ewoks animated show, I don't have any of those. They are very expensive and they're hard to find. Possibly the rarest and strangest Ewok piece of memorabilia I have are these, which I found on a recent trip to Cincinnati. We went into a big toy store called the toy department, and of course I ended up buying underwear, or very, very old underwear. It's never been opened. But of course, as a kid, we had underoos, and they were a fun memory. I like collecting weird stuff, you know, Star Wars branded old food items, or obviously old food wrappers, Dixie cups, anything that was just disposable items. Of all the stuff. I have some of the toothbrushes, and so I think these are fun. I'm just glad to finally find them. I'd like to have the Darth Vader ones or Boba Fett, but Wicked's pretty cool. Just happy to have those. So anyway, thanks for watching, sitting through this trip to Endor, and if I could get on my own channel, this is Anime Anakin, if we could get to 100 subscribers here or on Podcasting from Beyond the Grave, which is my collab video station with my friends, then I'll be giving away a vintage figure or another piece of merchandise. So let me know.